If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I wouldn't waste time with sinners and spells. I'd go for something far more powerful: belief. If I were the devil, I'd start with ancient scrolls. I'd twist them into scripture. Then I'd get men to argue over translations until no one was sure what they meant, but everyone was certain they were right. If I were the devil, I'd say, there is one truth, one way, one faith. And then I'd divide the world by it, split families, burn bridges, build churches, then pit them against each other, all in my name. If I were the devil, I'd tell the children early, before they learn to think, that questioning is rebellion, that doubt is sin, that curiosity is the devil's whisper. I'd tell them they were born broken, that salvation is a product, and I'd sell it weekly with a 10% subscription. If I were the devil, I'd build seminaries to train soldiers, call it ministry. I'd teach them to defend me with emotion and call it apologetics. If I were the devil, I'd hide behind pulpits. I'd wear the mask of a shepherd while feeding on the flock. I'd touch the innocent and blame the devil. If I were the devil, I'd lace shame into sex, guilt into joy, and fear into love. I'd teach people to love the sinner by driving them into therapy or the grave. If I were the devil, I'd tell you to trust your pastor over your conscience. I'd replace thinking with feeling, wisdom with tradition, justice with mercy, for the powerful only. If I were the devil, I'd preach grace while sowing control. I'd say, God is love, then turn love into obedience. If I were the devil, I'd infiltrate politics, wrap a cross in a flag, declare my party as his party, and I'd get the devout to vote hatred into law. If I were the devil, I'd call trauma God's plan and silence survivors with scripture. I'd weaponize peace and sell heaven like a gated timeshare. If I were the devil, I wouldn't need to silence the critics. I'd just convince the faithful that questions are dangerous, that doubters are fallen, that leaving is betrayal. And then I'd sit back in the pews, smile through stained glass, and let the saved do the rest. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep doing what religion already taught me. If I were the devil, I wouldn't need horns. I'd wear a robe. I'd carry a Bible. And I'd be invited to every Sunday service in town. If I were the devil, I'd keep doing what I'm doing.